Have you ever noticed how quickly disrespect can burn into your soul? How just a single word, a single gesture can feel heavier than 1,000 truths? Most of us are taught to fight back, to prove ourselves, to demand recognition in the face of humiliation. But what if I told you that the darkest, most powerful way to handle disrespect is not in the clash of words, not in the fury of retaliation, but in the silence that unsettles, in the restraint that frightens, in the refusal to play the game at all? Disrespect only hurts because we secretly seek validation from those who belittle us. We beg for acknowledgement from voices that do not deserve to be heard. The real sting isn't in what they said, it's in what it revealed about our own dependence. So, ask yourself, when someone disrespects you, do you fight to prove your worth to them? Or do you rise in such a way that their disrespect becomes meaningless, swallowed by your silence, your stillness, your refusal to kneel to the shallow judgment of others? The world has conditioned us into believing that every act of disrespect is an invitation to defend ourselves, a stage where we must perform strength by raising our voices or proving our worth. It is as if silence itself is shameful, as if the only acceptable reaction is retaliation. Yet this belief is nothing more than a prison built by pride. When someone disrespects you, they are not truly reaching into your soul and exposing your flaws. They are projecting their own fractures. But the trap is subtle, because the instant you react, you step into their theater and become a player in their script. You validate the idea that their words or gestures matter, that they have the authority to wound you. Machiavelli warned us that people often care more about how things appear than how they truly are. In that sense, disrespect is performance. It is staged, exaggerated, designed to provoke a response. When you respond, you play your part, you bow to the script, and in doing so you let their illusion gain weight. The deeper truth is that disrespect is powerless unless you choose to give it power, and silence is the only refusal strong enough to expose this illusion. Think about the psychology behind disrespect. At its core, disrespect is rarely about you. It is about the one giving it, about their hidden weakness, their craving for superiority, their desperate need to feel taller by making someone else kneel. To disrespect is to confess envy, confess insecurity, confess fear. Yet most people never pause long enough to see this. They jump into the fire, their emotions flaring, trying to prove that they will not be belittled. But in trying to prove it, they ironically confirm it. They acknowledge the disrespect as meaningful. They validate the one who disrespected them by showing that their actions matter. This is the great irony of human pride. In attempting to reclaim dignity, we often throw it away. Emotional maturity begins when you realize that not every battle is worthy of your sword. Sometimes the most terrifying act of defiance is not war, but absence. It is not retaliation, but restraint. When you understand this, the entire game changes. Imagine someone insults you publicly, expecting your anger, waiting for your outburst, needing your eruption to justify their own narrative. If you explode, they win. They have dragged you to their level, and now the crowd sees only two people fighting, not one person's insecurity exposed. But if you remain calm, if you let their words dissolve into the air without acknowledgement, you deny them their stay. They look smaller, not you. Their disrespect becomes a mirror reflecting only themselves. The onlookers begin to question, why would this person try so hard to provoke? Why is their anger so loud against someone so composed? This reversal is only possible when you master the art of silence. You turn their attack into their own undoing. This is why silence, when chosen deliberately, is not weakness. It is a blade sharper than words. And yet, society does not honor silence. We are raised to think that walking away is cowardice, that unanswered insults are evidence of fear. We are told, stand up for yourself, prove them wrong, make them respect you. But what does this advice really imply? It implies that respect is something given by others, something fragile enough to be stolen, something you must fight for like a bone among dogs. This is a falsehood. Respect is not given, it is lived. Your worth does not diminish because someone failed to see it. It is not their recognition that makes you valuable. To believe otherwise is to enslave yourself to every shallow opinion, to every wandering tongue. Silence then becomes liberation. It says, I do not need to correct you. I do not need to kneel to your perception. My worth existed before your words, and it will exist long after them. There is also a darker beauty in restraint. It unsettles people. It confuses them. When you do not react, they are forced to sit with their own venom. They expect a fight, but instead they find emptiness, a void that reflects their own pettiness. This is why silence can feel crueler than retaliation. It does not give them the satisfaction of release. Instead, it leaves them restless, haunted by the echo of their own words. They wonder why you are unmoved, why you are untouchable, why their strike found no wound. In their confusion, their insecurity grows louder, and they expose more of themselves. By refusing to fight, you make them fight themselves. This is the darkest truth. Your silence becomes their punishment. To practice this, however, requires a depth of inner strength few are willing to cultivate. It is not easy to remain still when pride screams for revenge. It is not easy to stay silent when your blood burns for acknowledgement. But mastery lies not in doing what is easy, it lies in doing what is necessary. When you silence yourself, you do not repress weakness, you channel strength. You remind yourself that your dignity is not a trophy to be defended at every insult. It is a mountain, immovable, untouched, indifferent to the storms raging around it. People throw stones at mountains not because the mountain is weak, but because they envy its height. If the mountain responded to every stone, it would lose its majesty. True power is silent, like the mountain. In the end, disrespect only holds the power you allow it to hold. The more you chase validation, the more fragile you become. The more you react, the more control you surrender. The only way to win is to refuse the game altogether. The world may not understand this. They may misinterpret your silence as weakness, but let them. Their misunderstanding is not your burden. The truth is simple. Silence chosen from strength is not surrender. It is dominance in its purest form. It is the rejection of their stage, the dismantling of their script, the refusal to become a character in their shallow play. And when you learn this art, you stop being a victim of disrespect and start becoming its undoing. Because nothing destroys disrespect more completely than the realization that it cannot touch you. Think back to the first time you felt the sting of disrespect. Maybe it was in school when someone laughed at you in front of others and you felt a heat rise in your chest that you couldn't control. Maybe it was later, in adulthood, when someone dismissed your efforts at work as if all your dedication could be reduced to a careless shrug. Those moments linger, don't they? The memory doesn't vanish after the words fade. Instead, it carves itself into you, reminding you of how deeply we humans crave recognition and how easily it can be denied. You might have argued back, perhaps even shouted, but even then the feeling of having to defend yourself left you drained. It is in those moments we begin to realize something vital. Retaliation does not erase the sting, it amplifies it. Because in fighting back we silently admit that we were wounded, and that wound now belongs to the one who caused it. There is a cruel cycle that begins when you respond to disrespect with fury. At first, there's a release. You shout, you explain, you force your truth onto the table. For a moment it feels like you've regained balance. But later, when the noise fades, you replay the scene in your mind, and you feel emptier than before. You begin to question whether you said enough, whether you looked weak, whether the others watching judged you. In this way, disrespect doesn't just wound once, it multiplies. Because your reaction gives it life long after the moment has passed. It becomes an echo chamber of doubt inside you. And what's worse, the person who disrespected you may walk away, satisfied, knowing they dragged you into their storm. That is the trap most of us fall into repeatedly. trying to extinguish fire with fire, forgetting that the blaze feeds itself on our response. Yet, consider the times when you didn't respond. Maybe someone made a cruel remark, and instead of fighting back, you let it pass in silence. At the time, it might have felt unsatisfying, like leaving something unfinished. But think about what happened next. The person who insulted you expected a reaction. They wanted proof that they had touched you, that their words carried weight. When you gave them nothing, it unsettled them. Their face may have tightened, their voice may have grown louder, trying harder to provoke what they could not get. Meanwhile, others who witnessed the scene noticed something else: your restraint. They saw composure where anger could have been, strength where fragility was expected. Without even trying, you shifted the power. The insult no longer defined you. Instead, it revealed their desperation. That silence, though difficult, carried far more authority than any shouted defense. In personal relationships, the lesson becomes even clearer. Disrespect from someone close to you cuts deeper, because intimacy makes us vulnerable. Maybe it was a partner who mocked you in anger, or a friend who dismissed your pain as if it were trivial. In such moments, the urge to explain yourself is overwhelming. You want them to understand your worth, to acknowledge your truth. But notice how often those explanations fall on deaf ears. When emotions are high, logic is drowned. The more you plead, the smaller you feel, until the disrespect isn't just in their words, it becomes in your posture, your tone, your need for them to validate you. The transformation comes when you choose differently, when you allow silence to speak for you. It does not mean you tolerate the disrespect. It means you rise above the need to argue for your own value. By refusing to beg for recognition, you remind yourself that your worth is not dependent on anyone's acknowledgement, even those closest to you. Society itself often thrives on disrespect disguised as entertainment. Public shaming, gossip, the obsession with mocking others. It surrounds us. You may have been the subject of whispers, rumors that painted you unfairly. The natural reaction is to chase every rumor, to correct every falsehood, to demand that the truth be seen. But this effort is endless, and the more you chase it, the more you fuel it. People rarely remember the truth. They remember the spectacle. The moment of transformation is realizing that you do not owe anyone your defense. The rumor, the whisper, the mockery. It burns itself out faster when you let it starve of your attention. And in time, those who believed the lies will see them collapse under their own weight, while you remain intact, untouched by their noise. By choosing silence, you expose how small their cruelty really was. Even in moments of personal growth, disrespect has a role. There may have been times when rejection felt like disrespect, job interviews where you were overlooked, creative works dismissed without thought, ideas stolen or mocked. It is tempting to equate rejection with proof of inadequacy. But think carefully, how many times has rejection eventually guided you to something better, something more aligned with your path? The truth is, not every rejection is disrespect. Some are hidden redirections. Yet when you fight against them, when you let bitterness consume you, you transform them into wounds. On the other hand, when you let them pass silently, focusing instead on your own growth, you rob them of their sting. Your silence becomes resilience, the foundation upon which you build something greater. And one day, the same people who dismissed you will have no choice but to watch what you've built, realizing that your refusal to break was your true response. What makes these experiences so profound is the inner shift they create. The first time you respond with silence, it feels unnatural, like surrender. But with time, you begin to see its hidden power. You notice how your energy is preserved, how your dignity remains intact, how the other person grows smaller in their attempts to provoke you. You notice how peace lingers afterward instead of regret. Slowly, you realize that the truest way to win against disrespect is not to fight harder. It is to stop fighting at all. It is to stand so firmly in who you are, that no insult, no rejection, no whisper has the power to bend you. And once you taste that strength, you never want to go back. Silence, once mistaken for weakness, becomes your weapon, your shield, and your quiet revolution. There comes a moment in life when the pain of disrespect no longer strikes with the same intensity. When you begin to see the patterns for what they are, at first you may think it's numbness, but it's something greater, an awakening. Disrespect once felt like a dagger, but now you recognize it as nothing more than the echo of another person's emptiness. This realization doesn't come overnight. It grows out of scars, out of repeated experiences where you learned that anger consumed more of you than the insult itself. Slowly, you begin to ask, why should their voice decide how I feel about myself? Why should their shallow judgment carry the weight of truth? The awakening begins when you finally detach your worth from the eyes of others. It is the moment you understand that disrespect is not a reflection of you, but of them, and that your silence is not surrender. It is sovereignty. There is a quiet strength that comes with this shift, a kind of unshakable presence that does not need to announce itself. Imagine walking through a storm, the wind howling, the rain striking against your skin. In the past, you would have cursed the storm, shouted into the void, begged for the skies to clear. Now you walk calmly, knowing that storms are temporary, knowing that they cannot stop your steps. Disrespect is no different. It is weather, passing and noisy, but unable to alter the essence of who you are. Your silence becomes a shelter, your composure a roof over your soul. Others may misinterpret it as weakness, but you know better. The mountain does not shout at the wind. The ocean does not explain itself to the storm. True strength is quiet, and in that quietness lies a beauty few ever taste. What is remarkable about awakening is how it changes your vision. You begin to see beyond the surface of people's actions. Where once you saw an insult, now you see pain. Where once you saw arrogance, now you see insecurity. Where once you saw rejection, now you see fear. This shift doesn't excuse their behavior, but it frees you from carrying its weight. You no longer take their disrespect personally because you recognize that it was never truly about you. This perspective transforms you from a victim of others' moods into an observer of human weakness. And in this observation there is compassion, but more importantly, there is liberation. You can let them speak, let them spit their venom, and still remain untouched. Because now you know the truth. Their words can only reach you if you open your heart to receive them. Awakening means learning to close that door. Silence, once uncomfortable, becomes sacred in this state. You learn to dwell in it as if it were a cathedral, a sanctuary where the noise of the world cannot intrude. In silence you discover that you do not need to fight for your dignity. It radiates naturally from the way you carry yourself. You realize that your scars, once sources of shame, are now proof of endurance. Every insult survived, every slight endured, every wound healed becomes part of your armor. And this armor is not made of bitterness or rage. It is made of acceptance, resilience, and clarity. People can hurl their words, but they cannot pierce what has already been forged in fire. Your silence tells the world, I have survived greater wounds than your words. I have endured storms larger than your opinion. This unspoken declaration is louder than any argument you could ever make. The awakening deepens when you begin to cherish solitude. Where once you feared being alone with your thoughts, you now see it as freedom. Disrespect often tries to isolate you, to make you feel less, to strip you of belonging. But solitude teaches you that you are whole, even when no one claps, even when no one applauds, even when no one stands beside you. You find a strange peace in walking your path without validation. In that solitude, you begin to hear your own voice clearly, unclouded by the noise of others. You begin to understand what you want, what you value, what you will and will not accept. This clarity is power. Because once you know yourself deeply, no insult can define you, no disrespect can shake you. You are anchored in something deeper than their perception. You are anchored in your truth. And so, the awakening is not loud. It does not come with fireworks or applause. It arrives quietly, in the way you choose not to respond, in the way you carry your silence with dignity, in the way you walk away without bitterness. It is the subtle shift of power, invisible to most but undeniable to you. When someone tries to belittle you, and you feel no compulsion to argue, you recognize it. This is the transformation. When someone mocks you, and instead of anger you feel only indifference, you recognize it. This is freedom. It is not that you are blind to the insult, but that it has lost its grip. It is not that you cannot fight back, but that you no longer see the fight as worthy. The awakening is when you finally realize that your greatest strength is not in retaliation, but in transcendence. The world will not easily understand this strength, because it goes against the very fabric of ego. They will call it passivity, cowardice, or indifference. Let them. Their misunderstanding does not touch you. The scars on your soul tell you otherwise. The silence within you tells you otherwise. The unbroken peace in your chest tells you otherwise. You know now that real power does not shout. It does not fight for every scrap of validation. It stands, silent and immovable, like the mountain, like the ocean, like the night sky filled with stars that do not care who gazes at them. That is the essence of awakening. To step beyond the reach of disrespect, to stand in your own light, untouchable, unshaken, unafraid. And once you reach this place, you never wish to leave. The end of every struggle with disrespect leads us back to one question: who decides your worth? For too long we have handed that decision to others, letting their careless words shape how we see ourselves. But the real revolution begins when you reclaim that authority, when you no longer wait for applause to feel valuable. Disrespect loses its sharpness the moment you stop chasing recognition. It becomes background noise, meaningless chatter that cannot touch the ground you stand on. And in this realization lies empowerment. You are not what they say. You are not what they see. You are what you know yourself to be. To live this truth requires courage, because silence is not easy. It feels unnatural to resist the urge to respond, to resist the temptation to prove yourself. Yet that restraint is where your strength is revealed. By refusing to fight every insult, you rise above them. You are no longer a participant in their petty theater. You are the observer, the one who chooses not to kneel to their script. And this choice, though quiet, carries more force than 1,000 arguments. Forced to be sympathetic, it is in silence that you reclaim your power. Inner transformation is the real victory. Outward validation will always fade. Today's respect can turn into tomorrow's contempt, and the cycle continues endlessly if you depend on it. But when you ground yourself in inner worth, no shifting opinion can move you. You become steady like the mountain, firm like the roots of an ancient tree. People may try to shake you, but their attempts fall away like rain against stone. This strength is invisible to many, but undeniable to those who witness it. True revolution is not changing how others see you, but changing how much their sight matters at all. Every scar you carry, every insult endured, every rejection faced has shaped you into someone unbreakable. You are not fragile because you have survived. You are not weak because you have held yourself together when others tried to tear you down. These scars are not signs of defeat. They are proof of endurance, of rising again, of refusing to let the voices of others define your destiny. In silence you honor those scars, and you honor the self that endured them. The call, then, is not outward but inward. Do not demand that others respect you. Demand that you never betray your own worth. Do not chase their validation. Chase your own peace. Let your silence be your answer, your stillness your rebellion, your composure your revolution. For the truest act of power is to need nothing from those who try to belittle you. So walk forward with this strength. Carry your silence like a crown. Carry your scars like armor. Carry your solitude like a sanctuary. The world will not always respect you. It does not need to. What matters is that you respect yourself, that you stand untouchable in the storm, that you embody the truth that cannot be shaken. Because the darkest way to handle disrespect is also the most luminous, to transcend it, and that transcendence begins within you.